The goal of our project is to examine the stereotypes, prejudices, and discrimination associated with names. We have looked at existing studies in the areas of naming in the African American community, characteristics and behaviors, social class, job resumes, and housing. In addition, we created a survey with questions based on these areas. Our survey was comprised of multiple choice questions, ranking questions, and various places to leave comments. Additionally, the survey could be taken anonymously, but did have a place to add their name if they wanted. We sampled 82 people, 46% women, and 54% men. We provided a write-in area for ethnicity and race, of which 66 responded white and 21% chose not to answer. We also collected information on age. Over 68% of participants were 35 years old or younger. We analyzed the results to all questions and have provided graphs and charts to some of those answers, both in this presentation and in the handouts provided.
The first study we looked at was called Distinctive African American Names: An Experimental Historical and Linguistic Analysis of Innovation. It was based on birth records from Illinois Department of Health and New York State of Biostatistics. It was between 1916 and 1989. They found that unique names for African Americans were either invented or adaptations from existing words. The research shows spikes in unique names during the 1960s, which was a big social, political, and cultural time for African Americans regarding civil rights movement. In August 2003, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas made waves when she demanded there be more black-sounding names for hurricanes and that the current names were too lily-white.
Send their children off into the world with a shaky psychological footing. Because you have to remember, again, I already mentioned the culture from which these names have arisen. This, in turn, affects our children, because when people see these names on paper, when they see that your son is named Lexus or Dyslexus or Ladanye or Shabukie, we find that people are expecting a certain set of behaviors from this individual, whether it may be true or not. And this is not just white people, black people as well. Black teachers, black administrators, potential employers, when they see these names, they are expecting a certain kind of person. So in essence, we tag our children for life with these made-up names, which have no roots in anything positive and are not at all reflective of our culture and our history.
The second area we considered is in the way of basic characteristics and behaviors. The study we looked at, Preschool Children's Selection of Race-Related Names, published in 1998, studied white and black preschool children and their perceptions of names and identity. The authors asked children to select between two names as they related to certain positive and negative characteristics and behaviors. The study showed that even at such an early age, children already have preconceived notions of ethnic names versus white names. Similarly, in our survey, we found that although most people, 65%, did not believe there was a correlation between names and characteristics or behaviors, subsequent questions infer they might. We also asked, who may be more likely to be convicted of a violent crime? Over 50% of all those surveyed chose Rashim over Chance, Judith, and Shirkan. The third area we looked at was social class. The study we examined was A Teaching Technique Revisited: Family Names, Nicknames, and Social Class, published in 1990. The authors surveyed university sociology students and asked them to rank 6 names based on social class, and then asked them if they felt there was a connection between the two. As you can imagine, almost all the students did not think there was a link, but again, when asked to perform the ranking task, there was a clear pattern of name stereotypes as related to social class. Based on this study, we also asked our participants to rank 5 names: Bradley, Jermaine, Mercedes, Jose, and Aaron. Overwhelmingly, Bradley was ranked highest and Jermaine lowest. We also wanted to look at geographical locations to see if people would link certain neighborhoods with certain names. We asked, who would most likely live in the Bronx? Ted, Frederico, Yadria, or Aisha? 45% chose Frederico and 35% chose Aisha. We also asked, who would most likely live in Denver, Colorado? Bradley, Antonio, Bud, or Monique? 70% opted for Bradley. There is a definite trend in our polls that tie where a person lives and the perceived notion of who lives there.
A study conducted in Boston and Chicago responded to approximately 1,300 help-wanted ads, tried to correlate the first name of a job applicant to the chances of being called back for an interview. The research was done by sending out 2 high-quality resumes, one with a black-sounding name and the other with a white-sounding name. The conductor of the study recorded how many times each job applicant was called back. The results showed that the white-sounding names received twice as many callbacks as the black-sounding names. For the white names, Brad was chosen the highest number for calls for males, and Kristen ranked highest for females. Aisha and Rashid received the least amount of callbacks. When creating our survey, we intentionally included questions about job placement. One of the questions included was, who may be likely to be the CEO of a financial corporation, Lawrence or Mohammed? Around 80% of people chose Lawrence as the CEO, but what was more interesting is that anyone who chose Mohammed defended their answer by saying he was probably the CEO in another country and most likely the company he controlled distributed oil.
The Housing Discrimination Study sent out hundreds of Hispanics, African Americans, and whites to see who was discriminated against in the housing market the most. The results were that African Americans were discriminated against the most, then Hispanics, and finally whites. Our survey showed the same results. We asked, who is more likely to own a home, Jennifer or Tanisha? Jennifer is a predominantly white name, and Tanisha is a predominantly African American name. The results showed that Jennifer was more likely to own a home, but since that is a more common name, Jennifer is more likely to own, rent, or build a home. We also asked, who is more likely to rent a home, Barbara or Manuel? 63% of people said Manuel, showing that Manuel sounds Hispanic and would be more willing to not have the means to buy a house.